Welcome everybody. Hope everyone is doing great. This is episode 79 of the Standing Eight podcast. It is Sunday, February 20th, 2022. We have an awesome show tonight. Several fights took place this past Saturday on different corners of the globe, most notably the fight between two of UK's most high profile stars, Amir Khan and Kell Brook, who finally concluded their 18-year rivalry at the Manchester Arena in England. You also got Mexico's middleweight sensation, rising star, Jaime Munguia, who put on a spectacular performance in his hometown of Tijuana on the Golden Boy DAZN broadcast. But but before we discuss those two fights, let me introduce the panel for tonight's episode. First off, we got one of the mainstay panelists, the one and only, the Burt Brown Sugar, Mr. Courtney Tanner, always ready with the war of words on these episodes. How are you doing today, Mr. Tanner?
Hey, I'm blessed to be here. Hey, blessed to be back on the air with y'all. Y'all know what it is. Y'all know who it is. And for those of you who don't know, it's Courtney Tanner, aka Burt Brown Sugar, the one you love to hate and the one you hate to love. A fantastic night of fights, discuss and chop it up. Tommy should be joining us momentarily. My left and right hand man, along with Aaron and Jimmy Blue. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm gonna go ahead and dispense with the pleasantries so we can go ahead and hop into this war of words. Let's talk some shit, y'all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Also, a very special guest for episode 79, his first time on the show. It is Jaime Jimmy Blue Garza. He is the founder of a boxing media outlet, All Access Elite Boxing, operating out of Grand Prairie, Texas. First off, welcome to the show, sir. Sir, any opening words you'd like to share about yourself and also about All Access Elite Boxing? Go ahead, man.
Listen, man, first and foremost, I'm humbled. I'm honored to be on the show. You know, I've met Tommy Rush at several different boxing events, man. Ringside here in Texas, always a cool dude. Always real professional. You know, he's very knowledgeable, man. So I've been following you guys for quite a bit of time now. So it's always an honor, man, to talk boxing and, keep everybody up to date as far as our breakdowns, our analysis, and how we see things. But overall, man, All Access Elite Boxing, I created it 6 years ago, man. And thank God it's still, up and running. 7 years ago. Apologies.
That's great. And just to digress for a moment, you were also ringside last night at a Dallas boxing event called Royal Rounds, presented by Kingdom Boxing. Several high-profile stars were there: Errol Spence Jr., Maurice Hooker. If you can you tell us about your experience? Any fighters in the up and up that you want us to tell that you could tell us about?
Well, you know what, man, my experience, it was a new promoter that was in town. Obviously, Dallas is it's a hotbed as far as putting on fights. There's several different promoters coming in from Mexico, a lot of local promoters from Dallas, and there's also new and up and coming promoters. So whenever they put on these types of shows, you never really truly know what to expect. And what I appreciated, man, was the atmosphere. I was blown away. I was shocked. Number one, by the quality of fights, but number two, by the amount of people that were there. And I mean, you had guys like the mayor of Dallas was there. You had Maurice Mighty Mo Hooker, former WBO junior welterweight champion. Obviously, Earl the True Spence was there. Coach Derek James. I mean, you had Donald Curry was there. Former super featherweight champion Paulie Ayala was there. I mean, there was a lot of music artists. I mean, it was a hell of an event. A lot of local fighters from Dallas who have fought on big stages, whether it be on ESPN, DAZN, and a lot of they fought former world champions, current world champions, prospects, and these guys, they put it all on the line, and they're trying to advance their career, so to speak, in order for them, number one, to stay busy, but also be ready to get those calls. So anytime that there's events happening in New York, Top Rank, Golden Boy, these fighters would be ready. So it was all overall, man, an excellent event. Shout out to Michael Montoya.
Awesome. Great for sharing that with us. So first on the agenda is the long overdue showdown between UK superstars Amir Khan and Kell Brook. They've had this domestic rivalry for dating dating back to 2004 when Khan was chosen over Brook for the Britain's Olympic team, only to win the silver medal. That rivalry finally manifested in the ring last night at the sold-out Manchester Arena, broadcasted globally on ESPN Plus, also on Sky Sports. As for the fight itself, it was pretty one-sided for Kell Brook. From the opening bell, Brook made it a point to stand his ground and stalk Khan throughout the fight. As expected, Khan used his trademark hand speed for quick combinations while constantly circling the ring in response to Brook's relentless stalking. Unfortunately for Khan, he never really had anything else in the toolbox. Brook didn't seem phased by Khan's extra activity. And in response, he timed Khan's kinetic offense with accurate, high percentage power shots. Those clean shots came super early when Brook had Khan on wobbly legs during the final seconds of the opening round. That just showed that was going to be the same pattern throughout the rest of the fight. As the rounds progressed, Brook repeated the same performance from the previous round and then some, until finally the ref decided to stop the fight in the 6th round, sealing the win for Kell Brook. So, Jimmy Blue, let's get your thoughts on the fight last night.
Yeah, you know what, man? Everybody was talking, right? You know, one thing that I appreciate from the UK fans or just UK boxing, as these guys, they show up and they show out for their fighters, regardless of whether it's, they're well past their primes or, guys that they follow through the amateur ranks and through the Olympic trials, things as such. These guys show a lot of respect to their fighters, and they come and they support boxing. Going into this fight, a lot of people were labeling it, glass chin versus the glass eye. Obviously Kell Brook never truly was the same after he took that hellacious beating against Triple G, obviously losing to Spence, and he just never could really get his career back in order. Fighting Terrence Crawford, losing to Crawford, and we never really truly knew what was going to happen next. Obviously, Amir Khan has been stopped several times, dropped several times, and some people, in the as far as in the forums, the boxing forums on social media, everybody says, you know what, Amir Khan has to have one of the weakest chins in the sport of boxing. And, granted, he gets down, but when he's hurt, he tries to fight back. And I just feel that his timing was completely off. His balance was off. And I feel that Father Time obviously has caught up more so to Amir Khan than Kell Brook. I didn't really like the punches that he was throwing. I know he made the change with Terrence Crawford and Bomac. I was expecting to see just a little bit more as far as effectiveness, a little bit, more technique, maybe be a little bit more sharp in there. But he just couldn't pull the trigger, man, and he paid for it. He paid the cost. And shout outs to Kell Brook. I mean, the guy came out. He came on, walking, calm down the whole fight, just stalking him. And as long as I've seen Amir Khan fight, he's never truly been a fighter to go to a plan B, a plan C, or plan D. He's not a counter puncher. He's always been a fighter that goes off first off of his speed and his volume of punches. But, we know that once he throws these combinations, what is one thing that he does? He has a bad habit of dropping his hands. When he drops his hand, he leaves his chin exposed, and boom, that's all she wrote. It's night-night.
Yeah, just to add to that point, Amir Khan, it's always been on all his fights that he finds success once he's right the first time. But if he gets caught, it's going to be an early night for Amir. But to his credit, Khan, he even when he was on shaky legs, he always mustered whatever energy to fight back. So I'll at least give him credit for that. But Corny, let's get to you. Let's get your thoughts on this fight.
First off, Jimmy Blue, hey, I see you. We're not going to name brands on the show because they're not paying us advertising. But I see you're partaking in some of that Bistos, juice. On Sunday afternoon. So salute.
Already.
But in regards to the Kell Brook Amir Khan fight last night, I'll say this, and I've been saying it for years. It basically, this is I told y'all. I'm of the opinion that this fight it was a stale fight, Both of these guys were well past their expiration dates. Um, but I recognized I was excited about the fight, and I saw it as a fun fight to watch, simply for the fact of seeing how excited the UK fans were about the fight. And I mean, it as much shit as these two have been talking to each other and about each other and making the rounds on social media, it was about time. It was well past time that those two got in the ring and settled it, and I'm glad they did. Um, I caught the broadcast. I caught the broadcast a little later. I was out of town. I was up in Atlanta when it aired live. But watching the telecast or the broadcast on ESPN Plus, Andre Ward, SOG, said something I thought was very profound. He said the problem with Amir Khan is he is constantly in search of the external when he should be looking for the internal. And in regard to Kell Brook, Amir Khan, he's always coming back every so often. He reemerged with he reemerged with Virgil Hunter. He reemerged with Dan Goosen. And now he's back with Bomac and Terrence Crawford. And I think it's one of those things. He always thinks that change in his corner, that change as far as voices in his ear, is going to change things around. But the thing is, Amir Khan has been internally broken for quite some time now, and I think we saw that evidenced in how things played out last night. I think this was one of those fights, one of those crossroads where the winner remains relevant for a moment longer, and the loser pretty much, they I wouldn't say fade from relevance, because I'm sure there's a few more fights that Amir Khan could talk his way into just off the strength of name recognition. But I think with this, and what we'll see largely play out in the British public, is the loser basically they no longer have a place in that conversation as far as relevancy out of the guys coming in at between 140 and 154 out of the UK. And Amir Khan has already gone on wax, saying he's going to have a long think about his career and reassess things. I think that's warranted. And as far as Kell Brook, I think as we were talking about on air, I think a fight with Conor Benn, it's worth having the conversation about. And seeing that he's moved up 2 divisions before when he fought Triple G, seeing that Chris Eubank Jr. is out there, if he's willing to move up and meet Chris Eubank Jr. at middleweight, I think both those fights are fun fights to watch. Both those fights are very gimmicky, and getting the people to tune in and see is that both are the sons of British legends. So I think what Kell Brook did with this win is he picked up a few keys and that are possibly going to unlock some doors for him. Do I think those are smart ideas for him to take those fights? No, I think what's best, or what would be best, is for him to go out on this win. I don't think there's really much of a better way to go out, but we all know how boxing is, and we all know how the allure of the bright lights and the big paychecks is. And so I think we'll see Kell Brook come again. And as far as Amir Khan, I hope he doesn't come again. But like I said, I've said it for years about Amir Khan, he tends to sell his chin to the highest bidder, and we might just have to wait and see who that is.
As far as the loser, I definitely agree. Whoever lost that fight should definitely retire. Andre Ward, he even mentioned he kind of had a differing opinion. He thought the winner and the loser should retire. But I think based on what we saw from Kell Brook, he at least deserves one fight. To go off that momentum, and a fight with Conor Benn seems to make the most sense. You get another hometown cooking that'll appease at least the home continent. to get to muster that energy. So I would be down for that potential fight. I see we got Tommy Rush Jr., founder of BSHQ Barbecue. What's up, sir? I see you got your computer updates finished, but let's
Man,
get you. Yeah, I know how that feels, man. I went through the updates last night, and it was a pet peeve, man. But we're glad to get you back on. But welcome back, sir. I know you were absent from our last episode because you were out in town supporting your boy Cade Cunningham from the Detroit Pistons, but he's from your neighboring hometown of Arlington. But I saw you were chopping up with him. But welcome back, sir. Let's give us your thoughts about last night's fight.
man. So I wish when I showed up, it wasn't like computer updates, and I was like out getting some chocolate brownies, so I could bring them to the show for a little, you know what I'm saying, a little chocolate brownie time. But yeah, I actually caught the fight a little bit late as well, like Courtney. But what I did see, you know, out of that was, you know, just exactly what you just summed up earlier, Aaron. You know, the um, Khan was he was allowing, you know, he was allowing Kell Brook to just completely be the aggressor in the whole entire fight. And as you mentioned, like we know that Khan is not the type to keep somebody off of him. You know, he does have the speed and quick hands, but he doesn't have that power that's going to keep somebody at bay. And I mean, Brook was stalking him the whole entire time. He was just walking him down, being the aggressor, and you know he started landing those solid shots on him. And once he did, I mean, to me, it was exactly what I expected to see. You know, it was either going to be one or two things. We were going to see that both of them were just extremely past their prime, which they absolutely are, and we know that for a fact. Or we were going to see exactly what we saw. Khan, as Courtney mentioned, you know that chin is synonymous with the ring, the floor of the ring. So you know he'll in there very often, and that's you know it's like it was only a matter of time, and it didn't take that much time at all, actually. You know, for Brook to dispatch him from that fight and get it stopped. I mean, you know, I was surprised he didn't hit the deck in some hilarious fashion as he's kind of known to do. But yeah, I mean, I knew that it was going to be one of those fights where Brook was going to make the best out of it, which he did. You know, I think that as we're talking with a fight with Conor Ben, getting that across the pond would be something great. I do feel that this could be one of those things where I mean we could even talk about I know that he's getting pushed up right now after his most recent win, but go ahead and let Keith Thurman finish him off or something. Give him another pretty active fight and let him end his career, because Keith Thurman would actually get rid of him pretty quick, I feel, as well. But it seems like as we expect for Kell Brook to be completely washed goods, almost like he still shows that he's got that heart. He's got it in him that as Courtney said, we may see another fight or two from him because he has that tenacity still about him, and as he's long in the tooth in his career. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if he went out on the win and retired. But I can pretty much see him fighting again.
One minor question. If it goes beyond a Conor Ben, what other opponent would you like to see also against Kell Brook? I would like to see, Tommy mentioned it pretty briefly, Keith Thurman. I think that would be a great fight. Jimmy, what do you think?
Yeah, man, I think Conor Ben is obviously the front runner. I think that's just a fight that has to be made for the UK, and also it's the Conor Ben is one of those things that's probably like the best thing coming out of UK since sliced bread. You know what I mean? And if Conor Ben is able to get a victory off of Kell Brook, that's going to elevate his career, obviously. But I think Keith Thurman would be a good option because obviously Keith Thurman's being off a long layoff. He's already 33 years of age, and towards the later parts of his career. And I think that fight can somewhat be evenly matched. You know what I mean? I would love a fight with Virgil Ortiz. Maybe, a boots in and something, one of those younger guys that can get that victory under his name. I don't want to say that if Virgil Ortiz or Jerome Boots Ennis or any of those guys were to defeat Kell Brook, if it would dilute the victory, because obviously he's lost to Spence as well as Crawford. But I mean, it's a name to absolutely have on your resume. And what Tommy's mentioned earlier, hey, he wouldn't be, he wouldn't be mad if Kell Brook were to retire or anything like that. But I mean, at 35 years of age, I have to respect the fact, number one, that he came in shape. The guy looked phenomenal. He was shredded. He's always in shape. He's never had a problem or any issues as far as making weight. But in my opinion, what it gives me, man, it gives me more of an appreciation. What I mean by that is, when we look at Crawford, when we look at Floyd Mayweather, when we look at guys that were in their mid-30s and now they're getting up there in age, Juan Manuel Marquez. I mean, these guys were still pound for pound great elite fighters. You know what I mean? And obviously Khan has been in wars. Kell Brook has been in wars. But it's just one of those things where, sometimes you have it, and then other times you don't. You look like a shot fighter. And I'm not saying that that Kell Brook looked shot. This was a great victory. It was a great, comeback fight for him. But there's some real true dogs in the welterweight division, man. And, I don't know if he wants any of those problems. He may just want to, continue fighting in the UK as opposed to coming to the United States and, having his back against the wall again, because he's one defeat away from, ending it all. So, and to my boy Courtney over here, I know you mentioned, what Andre Ward said about external and internal, and I completely agree. I think that as fighters, man, one of the issues that I've always had is, or rather what I've never really understood, is when fighters would switch from trainer to trainer to trainer to trainer. And I remember one time I asked, an elite level trainer, and, it was off record, but I asked him, I'm like, hey, man, why is it that, in this particular case, I was speaking on Jesse Vargas. Jesse Vargas had switched so many trainers from Roy Jones Jr., Freddie Roach. I think he was with Floyd Mayweather Sr. He even switched to Eric Morales and then ended up going back to his old coach. And I just wasn't understanding that. You know what I mean? Because to me, a lot of, trainers, man, I mean, some trainers would add to your arsenal, but other trainers are, at times can try and attempt to completely change your style. But what I didn't realize was a lot of it comes to money. You know what I mean? Certain fighters get at a certain level, they want to pay a certain percentage, and as opposed to paying a percentage, they rather just pay a flat fee, somewhat similar to Triple G and Abel Sanchez. But I don't know, man. I think that, again, I was expecting just to see a little bit more of a dog in Khan, especially him being with Bud Crawford. I respect the fact that Terrence went out there, showed love to his stablemate, and that was really big of him, man, because a lot of fighters at his level, at his elite level, wouldn't do that. They could care less, man, but you can tell they have that family atmosphere over there at his gym, and, props to them, man. But to answer your question, I'd love to see Keith Thurman, maybe a Boots Ennis, or Conor Benn, man. Virgil Ortiz. Those are my top four that I'd love to see.
Let him fight AB.
Hey, let's do it. I like it. Anybody?
I got to get that win like at least once an episode. It's like, hey, go ahead, let him fight AB. But no, I think honestly, if I'm guiding the careers of Virgil Ortiz or Boots Ennis, I would jump on the opportunity to go to England and fight Kell Brook. That would be an amazing learning opportunity for both those fighters. Neither one of them had made that kind of rite of passage as for a young American fighter to kind of traverse the Atlantic and go over there and fight a name over in Britain. That's, if you look at the current champions, especially between 135 and 160, that's usually how it goes. Is you go over to UK and you get one. Even Gervonta Davis went over there and notched a win. Early in Deontay Wilder's career, he did the same thing with fighting A4 Audley Harrison. So I mean that would be, Brook is like the perfect opportunity. That's like the perfect scenario to do that, in that Brook is long in the tooth. but he still is somewhat formidable. And the thing is the exposure of it. Kell Brook obviously can still put 20,000 asses in seats in one of the arenas or one of the stadiums over there. And that with among with the name recognition that Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz are getting, that only builds their brand. And Jenny Blue said, as far as getting that name on the resume, it checks multiple boxes as far as getting a name on a resume, as in leaving your comfort zone and going to fight a name in front of their in front of their people in their basically on their home court. It's kind of like team sports in that it's easy to pad your record at home, but where we see where true championship teams are made is what they can do on the road. And that I think that's the same mantra with the young prospect on the rise in boxing. You want to make them uncomfortable. You want to put them on the road and get them out there in front of a new audience, and build that. You take that base and kind of build on it. Everybody needs an international audience. I tell our international following on this show, it's huge. It's one thing to be a big shot or be a big cheese in your own backyard, but it speaks to a different level of where you're at in whatever field you're at when you can traverse, you can go transcontinental, when you can cross oceans, when you can get on that plane and you can do what you do in a different area code, in a different time zone, in a different location. So definitely think that's those are viable fights for Kell Brook. If he wants to another big paycheck, another shot at the title. The road is going to go through these young prospects, and Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis. That's where it's at right now.
Man, hey, I'm sorry, man. I don't want to interrupt you, Tommy. That's a hell of a point, Courtney. I got to give you props on that one because, as you mentioned, I'm just going to name 3 fighters off the top of my head. A lot of fighters they want to go through the road less traveled, right? But if they go overseas and get that recognition win, sometimes you have to go overseas in order to become a star. And I'm just going to throw 3 names off the top of my head. Maurice Mighty Mo Hooker ended up winning his title overseas, I believe in Scotland or in the UK. Earl Spence Jr. ended up beating Kell Brook, won the IBF title. Look where he's at in his career. But also look at what that victory did for Maurice Hooker when he was able to at least have a couple of title defenses and make some decent money. And my third one, Terrence Bud Crawford. Crawford ended up fighting, I believe, in I want to say it was either in Scotland or the UK, and he ended up winning that title. He stepped in last minute, and he did his thing. So you're absolutely right, man. Me personally, in my opinion, I would have loved for Virgil had he fought his current the opponent that he has now. If he would have fought him in the UK, because the guy's from England, that would have been really great for Virgil because he is signed with MTK Global, which I believe they're based out of Europe or the UK. So those things are possible, man. So that's a great point.
Also, another point, and as far as going overseas and beating a name and making your bones and expanding your audience, if we're looking at another young prospect who is very hesitant in doing that, then it's made headlines. Mr. Devin Haney, showed a lot of hesitation in when it was George Kambosos. He said what it was at the beginning: is whoever wants to take these belts has to come to Australia and see me. And we discussed this on another episode. But his hesitation has led to basically Lomachenko getting in, and that seems like that's days away from George Kambosos and Lomachenko signing the fight. And that's depriving fans because that puts another delay in us seeing an undisputed lightweight champion. But it's also, that speaks to Devin Haney's character, as in, he talks all this shit. He popped all that bubble gum, and then when the moment of truth came, it's just like, hey, get your ass on a plane and come over here. When he had that moment of doubt, like that, Lomachenko stepped to the forefront, was like, yo, I'll see you anywhere. And that's ultimately, it's looking like that's what's going to get Lomachenko the fight over Devin Haney, and that delays Devin Haney's ascension.
Man, and you remember right there after that fight, what did Haney say? I'll go to Pluto, I'll go to Jupiter to take that fight. He wouldn't go out of the United States. So it's like, we talk that paper champ type shit. Like, hey, it's show and prove, and a lot of people, even some of us may have been a little bit critical about Lomachenko and his arrogance in his return fight and how he kind of handled that fight, but he was on a mission. He had a and he executed that plan. He put what needed to be out there, and he's standing on it. And so, yeah, I fully agree with that, man. And that's when it comes to us talking about Haney and Lomachenko, when we bring up those prospects for Kell Brook, that's why I mentioned Keith Thurman, because Keith Thurman got pushed up, and we seen Boots get kind of pushed out of the way a little bit. So in this same essence of this conversation, yeah, Boots should go on across the pond and completely annihilate, and be that next up and coming star to make those types of waves across the pond.
Hey, y'all know I'm old and I get these bottle rimmed glasses on. I think my man Stephen Ruiz has got words for me. I couldn't read it when he popped up, but
He gave you compliments, believe it or not. He said, "Good point, Corny."
oh man, hey, shout out to Stephen Ruiz. Hey, as always, man, much love, man. Thank you. Hey, I'm over here defensive, because
Hey, you better take a screenshot picture of that one.
homie came through guns blazing at me, man. Like,
Great stuff. So yeah, great input from all you guys as far as Kell Brook versus Amir Khan. On the opposite side of the globe, you have Jaime Munguia's hometown Tijuana win against then undefeated, not very well known D'mitrius Ballard on the Golden Boy DAZN card. This is Munguia's fourth defense of his WBO regional middleweight title, who is also coming off a highly competitive all-action decision win against Gabriel Rosado last November. As for the fight itself, last night in Tijuana, also to note during the weigh-in, I think you guys knew this too. Munguia, he nearly passed out, which kind of signals that he should move up in weight pretty soon. But we'll get back to that soon enough. So going back to that fight, it didn't take long for Munguia to assess and break down Ballard. In the concluding third round, Munguia caught Ballard with the left body shot, immediately followed by a left hook upstairs, which had Ballard stunned and falling back to the corner, allowing Munguia to continue his barrage of hooks to score the knockdown. Moments later, Munguia kept the pressure on, trapping Ballard against the ropes, hurting him more with more shots until the ref stopped the fight eventually. Tommy, let's get your thoughts on Jaime Munguia's performance in his hometown.
Man, so you alluded to the very first thing I was gonna say. Like, I wanted to see what he was gonna look like after he damn near passed out. Like, like we already knew that he was going to rehydrate like crazy. So, like, looking at him in those video clips, where he was completely a shell of himself, in that video, and it showed with him nearly passing out. I wanted to see what he was going to just look like, just coming out of that. Which, I mean, we saw it. He swole up the way he needed to and the way he usually does, and rehydrated very, very well, and came in there looking pretty bulky, actually. I felt that he was going to do exactly what he did. He laid them heavy hands on him, man, and this is just a clear sign that, I mean, he's at this point right now, he's able to bully the division. It's not a fact of the skill set that he's showing and putting forth, but it's just the fact that, I mean, he's so much bigger, man. Like, and he's heavy handed. He has a motor, that is excellent. And when you have that, and you have that type of headshot and body work, and you can work both systems, and you're not just telegraphing to one specific area, but you're just going to go at it and let them hands go and be heavy with it all the time. It's dangerous, man, and it showed in this fight. So I mean, I felt that, yeah, he was going to dispatch him in a great fashion, which he did. I was just mainly concerned, for Jaime's health, and that scare, as far as draining himself as much as he did to make the weight for this fight. And yeah, I mean, hopefully this is his last fight, at this division, because he absolutely needs to move up.
Yeah, great. Very concerning as far as him passing out, and how who's going to rebound from that immediately after. Jimmy Blue, let's get your thoughts on Jaime's performance last night.
You know what, man? I remember Munguia, when this guy, young kid, because he's still young at age. I remember when he was trying to fill in a fight of Gennady Golovkin. I remember it was going to be on HBO. This guy was going to be, he came out of the woodworks, man, and he was coming in on a couple of weeks' notice. And you know what? Whether it was the, I can't remember which sanctioning body. I want to say it was the WBC. Somebody saved his ass, because if he would have fought Gennady Golovkin, we wouldn't be talking about Munguia where he's at right now, relatively in his career. But credit to him, Golden Boy ended up, in Zayfer Promotions, promoted this guy, ended up giving him the fight with Saddam Ali, ended up winning that fight. And hey, man, he became a world champion, somewhat of a household name as far as in Mexico. And they started guiding this kid. They were guiding him correctly against a lot of C-level type average fighters. And that's all Golden Boy. You know what I mean? Oscar De La Hoya, there's no denying, and there's no secret that these guys really, truly want to, as far as break the mark for Floyd Mayweather's 51-0, when this kid's already 39-0. But like, at the end of the day, who has he truly, really fought? And as what Tommy mentioned, at the weigh-ins, man, you see this kid, he's still young. He's a big body. When you have trouble making weight, that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Because he was having trouble at 154 at one point, now moved up to 160. And it's like, look, man, if your body can't hold it at 160, obviously you're annihilating a lot of these guys, with the exception of Gabe Rosado, that you need to move up to 168. But at what point will Golden Boy basically take off the training wheels of Munguia to see what he truly has? Now, again, I won't sit here and deny and lie and say, you know what, Munguia has he's gotten better. Eric Morales is from Tijuana. He's been his mentor and has been his coach the last 4 to 5 fights, I believe. Man, every fight that I've seen Munguia in, he's gotten better. He's does a really good job as far as mixing his punches. You can tell he's a work in progress, man, because there's a lot of things that he was flawed in, you know what I mean, as a fighter. And, one of the things that I always look for, I don't know what, I respect everybody's opinion and their mindsets is how they see fights. But whenever I look at a fight, I always look at the styles. I look at the opposition. I look at, what does this man do? What are his attributes compared to the other? But one of the things I focus on is, like, whether I'm having a fight night party or whether, the company that I have, they're enjoying the fight, right? They're enjoying the blows. I'm looking at everything, seeing what fighters trying to set up what, seeing what's working with what. But most importantly, one of the things that I always try to focus on is in between the corners. What's going in between the ears as far as the instructions? How well can a person listen to the instructions, but also the type of instructions that a trainer is given. And in my opinion, I feel that with Eric Morales giving, round by round instructions to Munguia, man, they're solid. You know what I mean? And he's fulfilling Morales's wishes. He's mixing it up. And I mean, Ballard didn't have anything for Munguia. Munguia was walking him down, had a great jab. And one thing that I like is even when Munguia would hurt guys, he won't lose focus on the body, throwing great body attack, great hooks, and he has power in both hands. But I don't necessarily feel the most that I've ever seen Munguia hurt was against Gabe Rosado, and we all know that dude's he's a warrior. Rosado's a warrior, man. You call him a gatekeeper all you want, but that dude right there is tough as nails. So when you think about guys like Charlo, when you think about guys like Sergey Derevchenko, you know what I mean? When you think of guys like even Bubu Andrade, who's a great boxer, technical fighter. I would like to see how that style meshes with Munguia, because I do believe Munguia has tools, but I still think that he's a work in progress. But at some point, I think Golden Boy has to, give the fight fans what it is that they want to see. And these C plus fighters, man, it's not it. You know what I mean? So I'm not calling him a fraud, because he is a former world champion. He's still undefeated, but there's more to be desired from Munguia. But overall, hey man, he did what he had to do. He was fighting in Tijuana, his home country of Mexico, in front of, and I've been to a Plaza de Toros. I've been to a very similar stadium where he fought at, man. And that atmosphere, when you're in that, whether it's in wrestling, whether it's in boxing, whether it's you're going out there to see the bullfighters, it's crazy. And listening and watching that fight, I can hear the chants, I can hear the whistles, and it brought me back to times past when I've been in Mexico and been to those types of atmospheres. And I was like, man, this kid, he's what, 25, 26 years old, having to deal with all that pressure and not making excuses for him. But hey, man, maybe it was just a little bit too much for him. So Golden Boy's going to have their hands full with him, because I know what the WBC ended up sidestepping the WBC when they were trying to get him to fight, I believe, Derevchenko, and he didn't want to take that fight next. And I don't know how the hell Baller stepped in. I guess it was from the previous fight, but nevertheless, man, I want to see what his next opponent is. But again, I love what I see as far as the adjustments, and you can tell that he's thinking in there. So he's not only a good counter puncher, he's also a great attacker. When he sees a guy hurt, he goes for the finish.
Great stuff. Courtney, let's get your thoughts on his performance last night.
Man, all right. Lead-in story regarding Munguia. Shout out to Anthony Saldana, Stacks. I had the fortune of meeting him and his wife, God rest her soul, at the Great Western Forum, and I believe it was for, I forget, I believe it was for the Estrada Soaring B-side fight. True to form with Anthony Saldana, I go up and, I'm introduced to him and his wife, and like within 10 seconds, he's like, hey man, I got somebody I want you to meet. And he kind of like blows a whistle, and just out of nowhere, Jaime Munguia appears, and introductions get made. He pretty much little brothers me, with the big arm across the neck, swinging me around, man. And I'm just thinking, I'm 5'10", 5'10" and a half, over 200 pounds. And my first thought seeing this guy, because I'd already seen him, with the, when he fought Saddam Ali. And I'm just thinking, damn, how is this dude fighting at junior middleweight? That is crazy. That is crazy how this man fits in a person that massive can even though you only got to weigh 160 on the scale for about 30 seconds, if even that. But it's like, damn. So I mean, what you led with, Aaron, is I don't think he's going to be long for the 160-pound division. And then we've just got the news, a few days ago that Bubu Andrade is moving up to 168 himself. So I mean, at first I was like, damn, that's a damn shame we're not going to see Munguia and Andrade at 160. But the door continues to be open for that. I think it's a little too. I think as far in terms of the matchup between Munguia and Bubu Andrade, I think it's still too early for Munguia. I think if that fight happens now, I think Andrade just outboxes him. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be pockets where Andrade is going to be very uncomfortable. But I think that's a fight he gets on the cards against Munguia, simply for the fact that Munguia is still slightly undercooked. And like what Jimmy Blue was saying in terms of, I think him not getting the WBC stepping in and saying they were not going to sanction that fight between him and Triple G. I think that was the best thing for his career. And then conversely, the second thing I think was the best thing or his saving grace for his career was Canelo leading Golden Boy. Because once that happened, Oscar De La Hoya recognized Munguia as the person who was holding the bag, and that's why we're seeing such a deliberate development from Munguia. In that, Bubu Andretti called him out several times and said, "Hey, this dude's been my mandatory for the last 10 years, and he keeps stepping aside or keeps declining the fight." I think more than anything, it's Oscar De La Hoya who is behind that, because I think Munguia's mentality is he ain't scared to fight nobody. That's a true to life Mexican fighter right there. I think Munguia would fight Bubu Andretti in the parking lot if that's what it was. But I think Oscar seen is that Munguia is Golden Boy's only real bankable and marketable guy in terms of being able to put making a future pay-per-view star in the same ilk as Canelo. I think Oscar De La Hoya recognizes that, and he's the statement that they're making at Golden Boy is we're not in a hurry to go nowhere with this guy, and I think honestly, eventually that's going to lead to a Canelo Munguia matchup, and that's probably good. I think that happens within the next 2 to 3 years at 168, maybe 175. With the trajectory that both these guys are going. Even if it's that far down the line, I think that's a fight that Canelo wins 9 times out of 10, and that one time would probably be on Canelo's worst night. But we already know that's gonna be a huge event for Cinco de Mayo or a Mexican Independence Day matchup, pay-per-view, all over that. And I think with Oscar too, also having that vindictive streak. He, and seeing how sour things ended between Golden Boy and Canelo, I think Oscar is savoring and relishing that opportunity to put Munguia in there against Canelo at the right moment. So I think the way he's moving is he's keen. That's the prize he has his eyes on, and he's keen not to let anybody throw a monkey wrench in that. And Bubu Andrade would be the perfect guy to throw the monkey wrench in that. In regard to the fight last night, though, with Munguia and Ballard, I honestly seen is that how Munguia looked like he probably needed his last rites read to him coming off that scale, and going in against a guy like Ballard, a very slick boxer, undefeated. I thought Ballard was going to give him all he could handle. And that first round, it looked like my initial thoughts were going to be founded. But then Munguia, just like that, turned the light switch out on him. And it's like Tommy said, he's got those heavy hands. When he has the ability to change the trajectory of a fight in an instant, on a snap, just by laying those paws on you. And that's what we saw last night. Also with Ballard, though, as soon as it got waved off, my thoughts went back to Ballard's last fight on the Zone, where Ballard, he'd been out of the ring for a long time. He got taken life and death with a very durable, tough Mexican fighter. I think it was Vladimir Hernandez. I could be wrong, but Ballard looked very shaky in that fight. And then, it kind of came to me. It was just like, that was tailor-made. I think Oscar saw Ballard coming off that fight, off that layoff, off his struggles with a tough Mexican fighter, and he thought, damn, you know what? That's the perfect guy. That's the perfect C-plus opponent to put in against Munguia because he's undefeated, coming off a win. The optics, you can immediately just present that on paper, and people are like, okay, But I think what we saw last night with Munguia, that was picture perfect, tailor-made matchmaking. And good on Oscar, good on Golden Boy for recognizing that and seeing what it was, and their ability to do that delivered a fun fight and a very decisive victory for their fighter in a fun fight to watch. So I'm very eager to see what's next for Munguia, but I'm eager to see what's next. Like Jimmy Blue said, it's pretty much they're running out of C-plus fighters to feed this guy. It's like who's next as far as B-plus guys they can find out there. With him not it being very unlikely that he's going to be continued to make the 160 limit, it's going to be very interesting to see what the future holds for him.
I feel that one of the problems, to your point, Courtney. I know you mentioned that we can perhaps see a showdown between Munguia and Canelo within 2 to 3 years. Now, obviously, I don't take Canelo for his word. I know he mentions that he would never fight another Mexican fighter again until he retires. He's not, he had that already showdown with Chavez Jr. and he just doesn't want to do it. Those were his own words. Now, I'm not necessarily, money talks, everything else is a small conversation, but um, you know, I feel that Golden Boy is in a position, right? Oscar De La Hoya obviously losing his cash cow with Canelo. Obviously, a lot of his other star being unhappy at some point, calling him out, which was Ryan Garcia. We all know the issues and the battles and the mental health that he has, and we can't necessarily say that in 2 or 3 years where Golden Boy would be, because by that time the contracts are going to expire with Virgil Ortiz. The contracts will expire with Ryan Garcia, because I believe 3 years ago he signed a 5-year deal. So unless Oscar De La Hoya is able to give those guys marquee fights, or whether they either leave Oscar, either go on their own, maybe do business without Heyman, possibly entertain as a free agent with Top Rank, Oscar's running out of time, and Oscar, for whatever reason, man, he's always in the news, whether good or bad. He's always in the news, and we just don't. I think a highly respected executive that was in charge of the broadcasting rights recently left Golden Boy and joined Triller, and we don't know where the company's going to be. And unless, as you mentioned, if they can't set a path, they're setting a path for Munguia. But in order to set paths, you have to give him better opposition and kind of build his name to make him a star. And I'm not saying that he's on that Canelo status or anything like that, but Golden Boys, quite frankly, they're running out of fighters, and in my opinion, they're running out of fights. So Golden Boy doesn't do business without Heyman. And if we've noticed, they have recently done a lot more business with Top Rank on ESPN. For example, Joshua Franco and other guys that they've done business with. But I think that time will tell, brother. Time will tell, most definitely.
Great input. Oh, go ahead, Courtney. Go ahead, Courtney.
I was just gonna say those are that's a very solid angle. That's looking in the weeds right there, because I didn't even think about that with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. So yeah, that's all facts, and that's gonna be very tenuous to see, because that speaks beyond if Munguia and Canelo is actually going to be viable, and it might be just on a different promotional entity. There might be somebody else pushing Munguia, but yeah, in terms of, that's kind of like speculating the wrong thing, where I'm over here talking about Munguia and Canelo, when the real question in that is Golden Boy going to survive into the next 2 to 3 years? And that's a very profound statement and a very profound point to make.
Great stuff. Also, this kind of leads to my other question. You think Golden Boy will be? You think they'll be sticking around long enough to at least make a fight, hopefully, because Munguia, he actually said this on the Zone News before last night's fight, that he quotes, and I quote, "If it was my choice, I would really like to fight Gennady Golovkin, or the winner between him and Ryota Murata." So do you think Munguia could still hang around 160 a little bit longer for that fight to maybe happen? Tommy, let's get your thoughts on that. A light angle.
Do I think that he would try? Yeah. I mean, we just see what he would actually try to do. But do I think that it is a good, smart, sound decision? Absolutely not. Like, I think that 168 is screaming his name, and as Courtney said, beyond that, to be honest. One thing I know where we got to talking about the different promotional companies, but just boxer to boxer, and building somebody like Jaime Munguia up, we saw how bad, Danny Jacobs has looked lately. That's a good cherry pick name to add to the resume if you could. Not to say that somebody like Danny Jacobs couldn't come in there and be crisp, but from the things that we've seen of him lately, I think Jaime could get him could give him a very dangerous fight, and if he comes in there on his game, that could be somebody to add to his resume.
This is where things get tricky though. In Jaime Munguia potentially moving up to 168. Canelo holds all the belts at 168. There's Danny Jacobs. There's John Ryder, who recently beat Danny Jacobs. There's Demetrius Andrade, who said he's moving up to 168. But there's no title. There's no title in those fights. Those are for that much risk involved in those fights. Like, what's the reward? Because is he going to make tens of millions of dollars to fight those guys? Probably not. Is there going to be a promotional entity or a network who's going to be willing to overpay him to fight those guys? Probably not. So I mean, if the move is up to 168, they're gonna have to. And I anticipate Oscar doing this as far as goading Canelo in the media. And saying like, hey, fight Jaime Munguia, or like, true to Oscar form. What we saw him do with Floyd as far as trying to angle for that rematch or whatever. I think if anything, Oscar is still doing well as a personality within boxing and as a promoter. It's basically talking a big game or talking his guys into a big fight. So I think if the move is legitimately to 168 for Jaime Munguia, Oscar's gonna have to do something like that, or fight a guy who puts him in is a title eliminator and puts him in line to fight Canelo, as kind of like the dangled carrot. But I mean, if Munguia wants to he's been at 160 for a few years now, up from 154, and he hasn't fought for a title at 160. So that's kind of an intangible, or an asterisk as far as like looking at Jaime Munguia. It's just like, all right, you competed at 160 for all those years and never stepped up to take a title shot. So it's going to be. I mean, at least see if he could fight maybe a Chris Eubank at 160. Or maybe a Murata or maybe a Triple G or something. Because if Triple G beats Murata, he's gonna have to move up to fight Canelo. His belt is still intact, win or lose of that fight. So I mean, maybe that's something to look forward to. But as far if the move to 168 is going to be immediate for Munguia, that's going to be a very limited landscape to move around in. As opposed to making 160. I don't think it's a discipline issue as far as him continuing to make 160. Like I said, he is a massive guy. That's probably a Herculean effort and one that's taking a toll on his body and could manifest itself within his performances in the ring, as we saw with the Teofimo Lopez, when you're boiling yourself down that long to compete at a certain rank. I mean, a certain weight. So I think what's next, whether he stays at 160 or 168, that's going to be out of necessity. I think if he goes to 168, it's going to be absolutely because there's no longer any physical way he can continue to make 160. That's possible, but I think his best bet, as far as continuing to build his brand, is to at least get a title at 160.
Yeah. To answer, both guys make great points, and to answer your question, Aaron, will Golden Boy be around the next 2 or 3 years? And that's a tough question, man. I mean, like I said, I love boxing, and I think all of us at some point in time have had the pleasure, the privilege, and the opportunity to be able to cover events ringside, whether it be Top Rank, Matchroom, Golden Boy, and we can kind of see the difference of as far as atmosphere, the difference of how they're putting certain events together, the money that's behind it, the professionalism, the organization of it, being organized and things as such. even with PBC. And one thing that I look at, right, and I look at as far as the not just the promoters, but the executives and the leadership and the people that you have in place. Now, I'm not saying that Golden Boy doesn't have that in place, but what I am saying is that at some point and another, and in times past, if we look at a lot of these PBC fighters, a lot of them used to be with Golden Boy. We look at Deontay Wilder, Danny Garcia. I want to even say Keith Thurman's name. There were several fighters, and once Richard Schaefer left, and he had that deal with going on with Oscar De La Hoya, and then Oscar De La Hoya tried to, I think, sue Al Heyman for $550 million. And Top Rank came and backdoored it with a $200 or $350 million lawsuit against Al Heyman. Things got a little heated, man. Things got a little sketchy there for a second, which is one of the main reasons why PBC does not do business with Golden Boy. Now, when we speak on as far as Triple G and Ryota Murata, in my opinion, right, if Golden Boy wants to be able to capitalize the most amount of money, right, it would be for Munguia to go to Japan, maybe sell out an arena because Murata can sell tickets, get that crazy money that Japan or Mr. Honda or whoever's over there that's in charge of running things down there. But I don't have the faith that Golden Boy could travel out there, negotiate a deal for their fighters to fight overseas. I think, if anything, Oscar is going to want to have the home field advantage, whether it be in the United States, LA, California, Mexico, Las Vegas. And I think that's I think it's unfortunate because, again, he has a potential star with Ryan Garcia. If Ryan Garcia didn't really go through what he was been going through, he would have been, a potential front runner for a Cambosa showdown, a Teofimo, or, Devin Haney, or whatever the case is. This guy ended up getting one of the best victories of his career last year during a pandemic against Luke Campbell, former, Olympian. And I mean, what happened after that? You know what I mean? They completely dropped the ball. So I feel that, in Munguia's case, obviously, in order for him to move up, I think it'd be great for him to move up. There's a lot of opponents, especially with Matchroom Boxing, with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn has a lot of those guys. But the issue is that I think in order for him to kind of get closer to a title shot, or whether, him fighting for a world title, you got to put those pieces in place. And I don't necessarily think that I don't know. I don't have as far as in terms of understanding the deal, the co-promoting deal that he has with Golden Boy, because he is promoted by Zainfer. I'm not sure how much Golden Boy is involved with the negotiations to try to get this guy in a position where he needs to be. And I've said it for quite some time. Shout out to my boy, the Boxing Prophet. I've mentioned, you know what? Jaime Munguia, in my opinion, and I say this respectfully, he kind of reminds me of a Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis, a lot of his opposition, a lot of his opponents may not be the best, but you know what? The guy's he's a star. You know what I mean? He connects with the fans, regardless of who it is that he's fighting. They're putting him on pay-per-view, whether or not we agree that it's pay-per-view worthy. He's fighting on pay-per-view. He's trying to become the star, and he's dictating the terms on who it is that he wants to fight, whether, him being promoted by Floyd Mayweather and them, Leonard Ellerbe and Mayweather being his mouthpiece and doing a lot of the talking for him. I'm not saying that that's good business, but it's good business for them. And I think Gervonta Davis and Jaime Munguia are somewhat similar as far as how they're grooming them, because they're very close in age. I think they're like 26, 25. Tank is like 27, I believe, 26, 27. But needless to say, man, I think something has to be done, man. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. And I was one of the first to think that when Ryan Garcia joined Canelo Alvarez's camp, I honestly thought that Canelo Alvarez was going to pull Ryan Garcia from Oscar De La Hoya to join Canelo Promotions. That's what I had in mind. And what happened when he joined Eddie Reynoso? What was the first thing that happened within the first month? He started barking. He started airing out a lot of that dirty laundry. And what did Oscar have to do? He had to rip up the contract and give the man what he wanted, which was more money. But it's all for nothing, because where's Ryan Garcia now? So it's going to be tough, man. I'm curious to see, because one thing's for certain, none of that shit would ever happen at Top Rank. And I say that even with Bob Arum, getting on his fighters and downgrading his fighters and fighters, whether it's Crawford or Teofimo, basically saying, this or that about Arum. One thing's for certain, man, they run a corporate business. You understand what I'm saying? So those guys find talent, they groom fighters, and they get them up to their highest payday. So it's going to be, and Eddie Hearn, we've seen it. Hey, Tommy, you've seen it, brother. You know what I'm saying? When Eddie Hearn comes here to Texas, bro, man, this guy, he's coming all the way from across the pond, and when he does it, man, he comes with a fan's mentality of trying to put the best fights possible, trying to give the fans the best experience. And this guy is a winner, man. He wants to win. He wants to do what's right for the sport. And I'm not saying that's the right approach from a business standpoint, but he's at least attempting to do something that a lot of these promoters are very hesitant to do, in my opinion.
I'm gonna chime back and follow up because I realized I went off on a tangent a minute ago and didn't answer the initial question. But with Munguia, though, as far as the picture at 160, we also gotta basically keep an ear to the streets or an eye on social media within the next few days in terms of if Bubu Andrade is really serious about moving up to 168, because that would essentially mean he vacates his WBO belt. And then with Jaime Munguia being the number one contender for the last 10 years or whatever, well, vacant title, and he would fight the next man up, who obviously would be somebody who is on that C plus B minus level. So I just thought about that. But in terms of Golden Boy, I think Jimmy Blue, that was a spot on assessment you made right there as far as Canelo potentially poaching Ryan Garcia. I think with them bringing him into that camp, that was essentially a trial run. They wanted to see what this dude was about. And then when they saw that what it wasn't about, you noticed when Canelo, he basically the words he had for Ryan Garcia in the media, and I think that was basically a very blanketed or veiled statement as far as Canelo saying, you know what, we were looking at you as far as like bringing you on the team as far as being a Canelo promotions fighter, and nah, we good. But I think it would not have surprised me at all if that would have been an intended detente within Canelo bringing Ryan Garcia into the camp with Eddie and Chepo Reynoso. As far as the future, though, of Golden Boy Promotions, I honestly don't foresee a boxing landscape where Golden Boy ceases to function. I think what would happen before Golden Boy just went completely defunct is Oscar would find somebody to hitch himself to, and I think that guy would be Eddie Hearn. Basically with Golden Boy and Eddie Hearn both sharing the ecosystem on DAZN, I think I think they would somehow make a partnership where Eddie Hearn would basically employ Oscar De La Hoya to show up and shake people's hands and smile at fights, and there would still be, at one point, I used to say it often. Golden Boy was killing the game as far as young prospects. At one point, that was something that Golden Boy did really well, especially with Latin fighters and fighters out of Mexico. Not so much now. I think after that 2016 Olympics, Top Rank was just like, no, we are eliminating all doubt that we are the premier promotional entity in the game and the promotional entity of the future. And then when they signed that deal with the exclusive deal with ESPN, that's when they kind of put a chokehold and a stranglehold on the game, because then they had that big stick to walk around with in terms of signing young prospects, because it's like, yo, we got ESPN money, which by extension is ABC, which is by extension Disney. So it's like, yo, we got, like Jimmy Blue said, we got corporate money over here, and that's a stick that Oscar De La Hoya wasn't able to carry his damn self. But I think I think if we look at Golden Boy's stable beyond Jaime Munguia, and some of the prospects. I think there'll be avenues where Oscar moves into as far as promoting fighters from the smaller weight classes, going back to Mexico and basically developing guys that he could bring across the border and present to mainstream audiences. But I think before Golden Boy went belly up, I think he would just basically be absorbed into matchroom boxing and just become per se a subsidiary of matchroom boxing and what Eddie Hearn is doing. And I mean, Eddie Hearn might even do for Oscar De La Hoya what Oscar De La Hoya did for B Hop and Winky Wright back in the day, where some of y'all remember Golden Boy used to have a Golden Boy East and a Golden Boy South, where B Hop and Winky Wright were respectively the heads of those subsidiaries of Golden Boy. And I think Eddie Hearn could possibly do something like that for Oscar, where it just basically say, "Hey, Oscar's the new CEO or president of Matchroom USA," or something like that. But as far as Golden Boy completely going away or Oscar completely fading from relevance within the promotional scene of boxing, I don't see that happening for at least a very, very long time. So,
you know what, Courtney? To double down on what you're saying, man, I think that when we think of Bob Arum, doing it over 50 plus years, you know what I mean, being putting on some of the biggest fights in the history of boxing, thousands of events. I look at the pandemic, right? What did we have during pandemic? And I'm not saying boxing saved sports, but God damn it, for 2 or 3 months when everybody was shut down, there was nothing. There was no baseball, no football, no, there was barely basketball.
There was a top-ranked bubble. There was WWE.
That's right. And you know what? And they all kind of followed that same model, right? That, hey, you know what? Let's keep the bubble. Let's do this. And you know what? In my opinion, I'm going to say it. I think Top Rank somewhat, saved the interest of boxing. You know what I mean? They did the right thing. And, there was fighters here from Fort Worth, from Dallas, man. These guys were, sub 500 fighters, right? These guys are entertaining as hell, but they were bringing these guys back every 2 or 3 weeks, even after a loss. And it was because these guys were in the gym, they were in shape, and even though it was the same amount of fighters, they put on some hell of a shows. But to your point, it's because they had that ESPN deal, right? So, if ESPN, I'm just, these guys are based off subscriptions. These guys have apps. These guys have, whatever it is. If they're unable to put on events, whether it's MLB, NFL, whatever the case may be, all these sports talk shows with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, if there's no sports to talk about, we have to do something to try to keep that flow going. And that flow for them was Bob Arum. Now, I'm not saying that the guy is innocent, because let's be honest. If, let's say, ESPN came to Top Rank and said, here's $5 million. Do whatever the hell you guys got to do. Get some fights on. Let's put something on the network or the channel. Who's to say that Bob Arum didn't use 200,000 of that money? Just here's to the fighters and pocketed the rest. Now, I'm not. I mean, that's conspiracy theory, but I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't see it past that. But I think, I guess the more concerning thing for me, man, is like, again, it goes to if I'm running an organization, if I'm running a promotional company, I want to have certain, again, I go back to the executives, the certain positions in place, whether I'm scouting talent, whether I'm going to the Midwest. You know what, man, I heard about this kid. Let me go to the gym. Let me do this. Let me do some sightseeing. And Tommy, you know this, man. There's a lot of talent, for example, here in Dallas. There's tons and tons of prospects that, for whatever reason, they may not get the attention that they deserve or whatever the case may be. But if their mindset is, our acquisitions and to try and bring up prospects is to simply go to amateur tournaments or, wait until the Olympic trials are over to see if we can sign, such and such. I mean, you're looking at a 5 to 7 year type of road to at least attempt to get your money back, whether it's from signing bonuses, whether it's from, working these guys up, because there's no guarantee that these guys, that none of them would be stars. So I'm more curious to see how Top Rank does it, because Top Rank gets all those guys. Matchroom Boxing, for the most part, they have the UK sewed up with Frank Warren and those guys. So And I'm not saying that they're the best of talent, but for the most part, those guys are popular, at least overseas. And there's a reason that Eddie Hearn wants to leave overseas to come to the United States, because he knows that it's more money. He knows that it's better fights. He knows that it's tougher fights, and it's the land of opportunity, baby. Let's go. You know what I mean? But I think at the end of the day, man, there's just I want to know, why did the guy leave? The executive that was there, he left. He just got promoted, and a couple of weeks later, he ends up leaving. Like, he was the guy that was in charge of the network deals. So they just renegotiated the terms with the zone. But if you don't have a guy in place with the experience to negotiate network terms, then what the hell's going to happen? You know what I'm saying? I like the idea of him maybe working with Eddie Hearn, but at the end of the day, I look at Eddie Hearn being the new guy on the block, where they try to treat him like the stepchild. And when we were in Vegas to cover the Canelo fight most recently in November, Eddie Hearn himself told us, along with a lot of the other media, you know what? It kind of feels as if they don't want me here. It kind of feels that, like, I didn't get the welcoming, not to say that I was expecting it, but, these guys just don't want me here. Like, they made it, hell for him, whether it's reservations. He was having trouble just reserving a conference room in the hotels, because apparently some PBZ executives ended up calling in favors, and it was just hard for him to get a press conference for Devin Haney and Jojo Diaz. I mean, I don't know, man, but that's just my personal take. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, great stuff. Great input from everybody. Hope we'll see what happens in the next 2 to 5 years with Golden Boy. But I don't think Golden Boy will be out of the picture. But it's very interesting what Courtney said, that it's very possible, Golden Boy could be absorbed into a higher conglomerate. We shall see. Last on the agenda, moving on, is the next power move of Canelo Alvarez. Um, Canelo has been mulling over proposals by Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Boxing and Al Heyman's PBC. So far, Canelo has rejected both of PBC's offers in attempts of matching him against the likes of Jamal Charlo and David Benavidez. Instead, Canelo has verbally agreed to 2 fights on the zone for Matchroom Boxing, for a May 7th fight against D'mitrius Ballard at 175 for Bivol's WBA title, and a September 17th fight against Gennady Golovkin at 168, assuming Golovkin is successful against his still pending matchup against Ryota Murata. But the only thing that's holding up this deal, supposedly, is Golovkin's agreeing to such a future fight. Tommy, let's get your thoughts, your breakdown about the ongoing negotiations for Canelo's new deal.
Man, this is the route that I saw him going. I know that when this stuff was surfacing, there was a lot of talk of him taking that Charlo route and things like that. I didn't see it going that way, man. Like the big money, the Canelo way is for him to take this route that he has gone. And one thing that that we talked about, Courtney and I, we shared some virtual high fives going on. Was there were a lot of people that seriously, yeah, that fist bump, man, like that. There were a lot of people that really felt that because Eddie Reynoso came out saying that he felt that Canelo should fight Charlo, that was the move. And we've seen plenty of times how Canelo gets down. We've seen plenty of times when Canelo speaks. It's not on, nobody's speaking on his behalf about things. And if they do, and if they don't come correct, what do you say? Get the fuck out of here. So like he's gonna say it, he's gonna move the way that he needs to move. He is about making history. He is about making those major splashes. And so I already felt that he was going to take this 2-fight deal. He's been talking for years, and mulling over years and years about getting back in the ring with Triple G. And another thing that was being discussed with that was Is he going to try to age him out so he can just really take him out, in that third fight? Looks like that's what's going on right now. Like he's like, okay, now it's purely right for the picking for me to go ahead, get both of these major money fights, grab another belt, continue to make history, and go ahead and demolish this dude that has kind of plagued me in my career a little bit for years. He is very methodical when it comes down to this stuff. And so I feel like, is he going to, while we say yes, he's still negotiating, with Triple G. Is he going to go that full on diva role in this mega money fight? Absolutely. Is he more than likely going to get his way? Yes. But I mean, I foresaw that this was going to be the move. Absolutely. And so, he gets to solidify both of those, very important weekends, which we already know that's one of Canelo's things, is to control those very high pay-per-view weekends in the year. And yeah, I mean, all of the boxes are checked for Canelo with this. And I mean, everybody should have saw this. I don't know why we really thought that he was going to go and try to fight Charlo. Like, yeah. Let's bring it on and get that get Triple G, get it negotiated. Let's get it done, and let's make that happen.
All right, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and tap in with my man Steven Ruiz, man, because this is one of the few things where we're right here on. And I'm gonna tell you why. Like, I know the social media world is kind of, and the FB boxing pundits are kind of up in arms about the rejection of the PBC deal that would put him against Charlo and Benavidez, and it's like, I'm saying the whole gambit of Canelo being scared or Canelo wanting to make this, that, and the third move or whatnot. I'm gonna tell you what it's all about with Canelo. Canelo is he's operating with the confidence that a man who is already worth more money than he can spend operates with, in that the money's gonna be there. What I'm saying? He's getting 9 figures where, saying no matter which deal gets done. I think the reason why Canelo is opting for the DAZN route and the DAZN opponents being Bivol and Triple G, legacy. He's viewing Bivol and Triple G as the legacy opponents for him. Because I'll tell you why. We all knew it was inevitable that Triple G was going to go. That Canelo was going to go back up and dip his toe back in the water at 175. He's doing so against the toughest opponent at 175. I know the comments are going to light up down there. The toughest opponent at 175 is not Beterbiev. Beterbiev is on his last leg. He's holding on by a string. Whether people want to acknowledge that, or whether people are in denial about that, that's one thing. I can't help you with that. But if you look at this objectively, the toughest threat for for Canelo at 175 is Dimitri Bivol, because Styles makes fights. Bivol is operating with a style that has always given Canelo the most fits. In that, Bivol is a tall, lean guy who operates with an edgy jab and solid foot movement. He's as far as that former Soviet style. He's from that school. He's fundamentally the most sound guy. Beterbiev, yes, he's the big puncher. He's the killer. But so is Kovalev, and I've said that before. And I think if it happens, Canelo would dispatch Beterbiev quicker than he did Kovalev, because simply for the fact he's already seen that style before and he's already downloaded all that information. I don't think Beterbiev would bring in anything to that fight that he didn't already see with Kovalev, to be honest. And I think he knows that. I think he recognizes that. I think if he's going to go back into the waters at 175, he's going to go against the guy who presents the biggest challenge. That's Bivol. And then as far as Triple G, someone might ask, why is that a legacy fight? Because he's been saying that Triple G doesn't deserve the rematch for like the past 5 years. But the thing is, I think Canelo is really tired of hearing the bullshit. He wants to go ahead and put it to rest. I see Jimmy Blur right there, but I think he's going ahead and saying, I'm gonna finish this business with Triple G. I'm going to take his name out y'all's mouths, and I don't want to hear this dude's name again after I dispatch him. And if I'm going to be making upwards of $80 million to do it, then it's all to the good. So and as far as that being his legacy, he finally gets to put it out there. Hey, we fought 3 times. I beat him. I beat him 2 out of the 3. And the other one, and the first one was a draw. So I think with that, he's looking to solidify his legacy at 175. He's going to beat a live dog who is undefeated at 175. A lot of people dismissed the Kovalev win because Kovalev was past it. The legacy is saying, hey, I went up to 75 and I beat a killer, and I beat a guy who stylistically does not really mesh well with me. And then as far as legacy with the Triple G fight, it's like, hey, now y'all can shut the fuck up now. I beat this dude's ass. I knocked him out. So I think that is his main motivator in going this DAZN route as opposed to the PBC route. If you look at Charlo, there would be instant marginalization. When people would say, well, he fought Charlo at 168. Charlo was a middleweight, this, that, and the third. With Benavidez, as loudly as people are barking Benavidez's name because Benavidez has aesthetically presented what would be a tantalizing fight. Canelo beats Benavidez, and then immediately people are going to say, well, who did Benavidez really beat? Benavidez didn't really beat anybody. So I think a lot of people who are barking, hey, he should go this PBC route and fight Charlo and Benavidez. Those are the same people who are going to turn around the next day and make every excuse in the world as to why Canelo ain't shit. So I mean, hey, and I think Canelo is smart enough to recognize that. So this is him saying, hey, I do what the fuck I want. Fuck y'all.
Hey, listen, shout outs to Ringside Reese, man. Stephen Reese, real Mexican style, baby. Triple G, let's go. Listen, man, all of you guys, man, much love and respect. Tommy, Aaron, and Courtney, you guys all make excellent points. It's always fun to talk boxing with true boxing heads. So much respect. Now, as I kind of addressed earlier, whenever I look at something, man, I'm a little bit different, man, and that's just how I am by nature, right? I try to look at things from all different angles, right? And even when PBC, going back for 2015, 2014, with Premier Boxing Champions first initiated, me and my boy Jules, my boy Jose, shout outs to them. I remember we sat down and said, you know what, man? Logistics wise, it doesn't make sense. The money doesn't make sense. These guys are investing $350 million. I think at one point, if I'm not mistaken, these guys were buying certain airtime on Showtime, NBC, ABC, all these different networks in order for them to say, hey, look, we want you guys to be able to see the amount of audience that boxing can generate when it's marquee fights. We want for whether it be sponsorship, commercials, whatever the case may be. And that was all Alex Heyman's planning. And one of the things that was a little disturbing back then was, number one, they overpaid fighters and everybody and their mamas knew it. You understand what I'm saying? Once these fighters were getting a little bit of action, Al Heyman started, reeling in the money, bringing in everybody in, signing over 200 and something fighters, and overpaying everybody. Obviously, who got pissed off? Bob Arum, Golden Boy, all these guys were, again, going back to the suit. They were trying to sue Al Heyman because they felt that he was trying to create a monopoly and trying to get rid of these promoters, which, hey, you can make the argument that he was. Needless to say, fast forward to where we're at right now, PBC is in problems. I don't care what anybody says. I feel that they have financial problems. I don't think that as far as plan work, the strategic plan that they try to put together, I don't think it worked. Now, it was great in a sense that we were able to get some marquee fights. Don't get it twisted. We got some pretty decent fights over the last 5 or 6 years. But the thing is that where it left the fighters, specifically speaking in the welterweight division, it left them wanting more money. It left them wanting this and wanting that, quite frankly, we as boxing fans, it doesn't demand the amount of money of what these guys are asking. And I feel that where the boxing landscape is at right now, if we look at Canelo, with the exception of Canelo, obviously he's the cash cow. I think that when the zone came in the picture, what happened? Well, they came in and said, you know what, we have $1 billion. Eddie Hearn's the new player in town, and he has money to spend. What did they say? One of the very first things that they said is that, you know what, the pay-per-view is dead and blah, 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 blah. What are they talking about now? Canelo Alvarez and these guys being on a pay-per-view platform. Now, trust me, fellas, I'm not against that. You know, I'm more than willing to pay for a pay-per-view. God, man, I bought so many pay-per-views here, man. It's because I love the sport. I owe it to the sport. You know what I mean? And I owe it to the fighters that are guys that are going to be willing to risk their lives in the ring. I mean, I owe it to them. You know, we're enthusiasts for a reason, right? But I feel that to my boy Jose Rendon's point, Canelo Alvarez, what is he? He's a businessman first, right? He's a fighter second, a businessman first. So when he worked with Eddie Hearn, man, Eddie Hearn threw out the red carpet for Canelo. Hey, man, you know, we got him a fight in San Antonio. And it was, in my opinion, and I can't prove this, but I honestly, truly feel that Eddie Hearn and his people or his lawyers or whoever it may have been was in the ear of Canelo when he ended up getting out of that contract with Golden Boy. What happened? He filed a countersuit and within weeks got released from Golden Boy. He tried to sue DAZN for the $365 million. And what happened? He got released. He became a free agent. He started making boss moves. You know what I mean? And what happened? He went back to DAZN and ended up fighting and making millions. Now, what happened when he went with PBC? Like you said, like you mentioned, Courtney, as well as my boy Tommy, he was trying to make history. And making history, obviously becoming the first undisputed world champion, 168, first Mexican undisputed world champion. But he couldn't do it without Al Haymon and PBC. They ended up paying him. And what did he say after the fight? Oh, man, Al Haymon treated me good. Al Haymon did this. Al Haymon did that. Well, but he said the same thing about Eddie Hearn a few months prior. Remember when they fought in Miami and then they fought in San Antonio in December? So to me, it's like he leveraged both of them in order to negotiate his contracts. Once they're talking about, well, you know what, Al Haymon is going to guarantee you $45 million, $100 million for this, or whatever the case may have been. What happened? Eddie Hearn had to jack the price up. And what happened this week? Well, this week, DAZN out of nowhere cleared what? I think they said $4.3 billion out of debt. They ended up buying BT Sports a few months back. And, you know, these guys are serious players with serious pockets. You know what I mean? And the one that's laughing all the way to the bank is Gennady Golovkin, signing a $100 million deal. He's fought nobody. Hey, I'll be the first to admit it. He's fought nobody, laughing all the way to the bank. You understand what I'm saying? But I feel that when I go back to speaking about as far as when I look at all angles, I also look at it from a pay-per-view standpoint. Me and my boys, we talk boxing all day, every day, 24/7. It's a lifestyle. You understand what I'm saying? And I know you guys can respect that, and I know you guys probably do the same. But when I look at pay-per-views, there's always a number, right? Whether it's 500,000 pay-per-views, 1 million pay-per-views, whatever the case may be. Obviously, I'll pull out my calculator. I'll start calculating. All right, $80 at 1 million pay-per-view buys equals such amount. Let's say that the gate brings in such amount. Let's say sponsors brings in this. Let's say television rights from Mexico brings in this. Where in the hell does the amount of money that these guys are generating, where does it warrant it? If most of the time network deals, you have to be willing to pay them half or whatever the net profits is. So if we're making I don't know, $50 million off of pay-per-view, you got to pay at least half of it to the networks. And then you also got to think about the promoters. How the promoter going to split it? How is he going to pay this guy, pay the undercard, pay the venue? You know what I'm saying? The workers that are working. Man, there's so many things that are connecting. You know what I'm saying? And to me, what I'm saying is that Canelo Alvarez leveraged Al Haymon and leveraged Eddie Hearn to kind of do a price bidding war against each other in order for him to get the last laugh, number one. Number two, in order for him to jack the price up. So whether he goes with Eddie Hearn, which I feel is probably the best route, Canelo Alvarez himself has said, and I've asked Eddie Hearn in front of him, and he laughed in my face when I asked him, I got the video. But you know what? Jimmy Blue gets the last laugh because I'm going to call him out on his BS. You understand what I'm saying? What did Eddie Hearn recently say? It wasn't too long ago. He goes, you know what? Canelo Alvarez is a superstar. He's an international star, and he wants to fight in the UK eventually at some point in time. What happened? John Ryder beats the shit out of Daniel Jacobs. Who's to say that somewhere down the line those guys won't fight? Canelo Alvarez fights in the UK, fulfills one of his wishes to fight in Mexico, fight in the UK, fight all these places because he's an international star. He himself said that it couldn't be done, but it will be done. I honestly feel that Canelo has a greater relationship with Eddie Hearn than he does with PBC. Not to say he has a bad relationship with Al Heyman, but look, the numbers don't lie. And if we're really truly into the boxing world like we all are, we hear the rumors. What are the rumors? PBC is paying, monthly payments to these guys. They're owing these guys. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul type of deal to keep the bills paid or whatever the case may be. I mean, I don't know. You got to look at where the most money is. And in my opinion, it has to be with Eddie Hearn.
But this is my thing though. I hear you. I hear you on what you're saying with PBC. But they said PBC was going to go bankrupt and belly up like 3 years ago, and it's still here. I think what PBC has done is because and we look at how PBC started out as it was offered. Like I remember those first NBC cards that PBC was doing. They didn't even have commercials. They just had the same loop advertising the next fights because they were paying for that airtime. And then they got Corona on, and it was the same Corona commercial with Deontay Wilder and Leo Santa Cruz on going in a loop or whatever. I know everybody else remembers that. But yeah, as far as I think Al Heyman, I think his strategy was to pay for that time, put those fighters on TV, attract new fighters. And the same thing with overpaying them to build that brand. And I think with the intended outcome of that was to have PBC find a home. And what do we see today is PBC is offered on Showtime and Fox. And those are pretty consistent. You have regular matchups on Showtime. Sometimes there's offerings on the regular Fox network. There's minor cards on FS1 and FS2, and then you have pay-per-views distributed by Showtime and Fox. And if we're looking at what Al Heyman has done with Top Rank on ESPN, I think with Al Heyman has pretty much taken PBC the same route, and it's not as high profile, it's not as lucrative or whatever, but I think they've nestled in and signed network agreements with Showtime and with Fox and are getting that corporate money just like Top Rank is. Are they getting as much money? No. But I think also what's evidenced is, this last Keith Thurman fight that was on pay-per-view, everybody was up in arms saying this is not a pay-per-view, which it wasn't. You had the Gervonta Davis fights on pay-per-view, which were not pay-per-view offerings. And then you had on New Year's Day, you had the Luis Ortiz, basically the big heavyweight card. That was fun, but again, it wasn't pay-per-view. I think what they're doing now is with Al Heyman and PBC, they're telling these guys, it's like, hey, if you want tens of millions of dollars, you're gonna basically not only you have to sell tickets and put asses in seats, you're gonna have to get people to buy your shit. And I think what they've done is they've delegated some of the work back to the fighters as far as like, hey, you want to be a star, you want to get paid like a star, you're gonna have to sell pay-per-views. And I think that's the model that they've been going for. That's been going forward. Does it suck for us as fans to have to pay for pay-per-views that aren't really pay-per-views because, like, I call myself a crackhead? Yes, but I mean that's what it is. That's the promotional climate that we're operating in right now. But I mean, as far as the whole notion that PBC is going to go bankrupt or they're going to go belly up, I don't think so. As long as Showtime has an interest in boxing and presenting boxing, I think PBC survives. Um, yeah, I mean, and obviously, if we look at when PBC started their vision of bringing boxing to free TV, it didn't work out, but it started that revolution in which basically Top Rank and Bob Arum pretty much jumped on and fulfilled that vision. As opposed to where PBC kind of retreated back on the cable, the premium TV, the premium cable networks. So I think I think it's people speculating on PBC's downfall. I think it's a bit presumptive. It's obviously, I think the vision and where it stands now is not where the envision started out, but few things are. And I think what they're doing right now, like I said, as inconvenient as it is for the fans to having to buy all these pay-per-views, that's what they're doing to stay relevant and ensure their survival. And as long as there's people like me, as long as there's people like hardcore boxing fans that'll tune in, as far as there as long as there's mainstream boxing fans that can get conned in to buying the pay-per-views without knowing any better, I think PBC is going to continue to have skin in the game.
Well, I agree with you, Courtney, but I just want to I want to retract myself a little bit, and on some things I respectfully disagree. And the reason that I say that is because I'm not necessarily saying that PBC is going bankrupt or they're getting out of the picture. That I'm not saying, because be it as it may, Al Heyman is a very, very smart businessman, and it's in my humble opinion that he has something in the waters. He has something up his sleeve, and I feel that sooner or later is going to be released to the world. Now, I shout out to my boy Jose Rendon. We spoke on this about a week ago, but I think the future of boxing is going to be with apps. Obviously, I mean, we're seeing it now with the Zone, ESPN Plus. But me, I like to watch series. I love to watch certain movies and things and such, man. And if I'm being true to myself, if I'm looking from a year ago to where we're at right now, there's so many different apps, from Peacock to Paramount Plus to ESPN Plus. I mean, the list goes on. Who's to say that Al Heyman doesn't have some sort of app or network? He has to have something in place. Now, I agree with you. As long as Showtime's in business, boxing's in business as well, at least with PBC, because primarily they do a lot of business with premier boxing champions. But I don't think that going back to the points where Luis Ortiz and Thurman's and these guys being on pay-per-view, and the point of, it's delegating it back to the fighters in order for them to see how much you can sell. Let's see if you can put asses in seats. In my opinion, these guys are selling 40, 50,000 pay-per-views, and that's barely covering the event, barely covering the fighters or whatever it is for their pay. And I think that it's more or less to keep fighters happy, because a lot of them have been on the show. If we look at Thurman, how long has he been inactive? And unless you're a top 10 guy from PBC, whether it's the Charlo brothers, Spence, any of these guys, Gervonta Tank Davis, those guys fight at the most twice a year, once a year. Danny Garcia. But a lot of these other guys, they don't get a lot of action, man. There's not a lot of money coming in. And when there is money coming in, Al Heyman pays them very well. But it was recently. Now, when I say recently, I'm speaking as far as within the last month or two, that Al Heyman's investors were being sued for like $500 million, or I think it was like $1 billion, for monies that they invested that they never saw a return in. When Premier Boxing Champions first launched, those 3 years of paying the airtime to NBC. Now, if we look back at it, one of the things that I remember, and I was speaking to my boy about this the other day, when Earl Spence fought, I think, what was the guy's name, Lundu, or whatever the case is, he literally fought him after the Olympics. There was over 6.8 million views, and everybody was saying, you know what, Earl Spence is the next one. This is before he became a world champion. When Danny Garcia fought
Keith Thurman. I want to say it was on NBC. I could be wrong. I want to say it was on NBC. That one generated 5.8 million views. That was a hell of a fight. Both guys got paid handsomely, but
It was on NBC, just to clarify. Yeah.
NBC. Well, there was millions and millions of viewers, but in my opinion, Luis Ortiz versus whoever this guy that he, Charles Martin, Keith Thurman versus Barrios. I mean, to me, that doesn't move the needle when it comes to them. I think it's just a way for Al Heyman not to have to keep digging in money, trying to find any avenue, any way that he can to keep fighters hungry, keep fighters paid, and because in my opinion, there's really no money to be made in that. Now, again, I'm not saying that he's going bankrupt, but what I will say, he has something up his sleeve, and he's going to release it soon, which is why he wants to offer Canelo Alvarez 45 million, 40 plus million, 50 plus, whatever it is, because he knows that that's guaranteed money. Now let's not forget, even when Floyd Mayweather recently fought, I think with one of the Paul brothers, there was issues with the payments, and Floyd Mayweather is somewhat affiliated with Al Heyman and PBC, and some guys didn't get paid, and why is Mayweather going broke? Why is he having to go back? Is he having to make money here, do this, do that? I mean, I don't know, man. It's all pure speculation. Obviously, I can't prove any of that, but like you mentioned, if we keep our ears on the streets, we hear a couple things here and there, but nevertheless, hey, who's to say that Peacock won't come into boxing? Who's to say Stars won't come into boxing, especially when they launch shows like Power and all these other, bro, we just never know, you know what I mean? But it's always going to depend on that pioneer that's going to take the sport of boxing to other levels that it's already in, whether it be on DAZN, ESPN Plus, and any of these other app platforms, because in my opinion, that's the way to go. Let's look at all the people that are canceling their cable bills, that are going with YouTube TV, that are doing, Hulu, or like you mentioned, Disney and Disney Plus. I mean, that's the way of the future, man. Like it or not, I think that's where we're at. But, 30, 40,000 pay-per-views. What, Bud Crawford sold, 130,000 with Porter. Even the Charlos, when they fought back in September of 2021, I believe it was, when they first made their premieres on double headlining a pay-per-view, there was rumors of these guys selling 50,000 pay-per-views. And, man, I mean, it's unheard of, man. I mean, it's just, to me, it's not good. If you can't sell over 100,000, it ain't good. Just my opinion.
Great stuff. And yeah, it's going to be interesting because, great point you made about Al Heyman. I think he does have a contingency plan that we don't know of. He could bring PBC to these. He could maybe take PBC out of the Showtime circulation and bring it to some of these apps, you might said, as you mentioned. So it'll be very interesting what Al Heyman does. You know what? It's been a great episode. We're almost 2 hours in. A lot of war of words, as Courtney said, that we've shared on this episode. First off, Jimmy Blue, any closing words you want to give out? Any shout outs before we end it tonight?
Man, I just want to, shout outs to Standing Gate Podcast, man. My boy Tommy, Courtney, man. Shout out to Aaron. You guys are, true boxing heads, man. Y'all know y'all very knowledgeable, and y'all's field of practice, man. Y'all love for the sport. Everybody brought great points tonight. I'm just honored to be joined as a guest. All Access Elite Boxing, man. We've been doing it since 2015, man, and we've had interviews. We've interviewed some of the best fighters in the world, best trainers. We've been on different networks and things as such, man. And it's humbling. It's an honor, man, and it's always good to be able to speak freely and speak about the sport that we love, man. So much respect. You guys get a chance. Anybody that's tuning in, man, make sure and follow us. All Access Elite Boxing on Facebook. All Access Elite Boxing on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all your notifications. Leave us a comment. Follow us on All Access Elite Boxing on Instagram. And if you're on Twitter, tweet us at All Access Elite.
Beautiful.
Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and slide in, man. Hey, I'm gonna save y'all the Oscar speech tonight because I got another engagement to get to. But hey, it's been lovely. Hey, love y'all. Thank y'all for loving us. Stephen Ruiz, I see you out there. You still a hater, but hey, it's Team Canelo down to the socks, baby. That's what's up. Hey, Burt Brown Sugar out.
Thank you, Tommy. He had to leave apparently early. But what's up, Tommy? Any closing shout outs you want to give out before we end it tonight?
Hey man, so a very, 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 very special thank you to the boy Jimmy Blue, Mister. Hey, I had to hit that because I was like, hold on, man. We went this whole episode and ain't hit that Mister on him. So Mister, All Access Elite.
All Access Elite Bucks reported live from Dallas, Texas. Let's
That's
get it,
right. That's right, man. Hey, wonderful episode. Appreciate everybody. Shouts out to Jose Rendon and Stephen Ruiz in the chat. They was on Jimmy Blue's head all night, giving him hell. Shout out to Manny. Hey, long live boxing, like everybody. We appreciate all of y'all that support us, everybody that's in this game, putting the work in, for the love of boxing, covering this sport, talking about this sport, and as Courtney said, engaging in the more words. Love it, love it, love it. And yeah, it's gonna be, hey, shout out to Sean Fitzgerald as well, man. Like, shout out to Stacks, shout out everybody, man. Shout out to Front Proof Media. We got so much. Shout out to Tiffany Daniels. I'm channeling a little bit of that Courtney right now. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna talk about Ghana and Australia and all across the pond, but you know what I'm saying? Hey, shout out to everybody. Appreciate y'all. Michael Gomes, always. Aaron, hey, it's been lovely, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and I reciprocate the same feelings. Thank you again, Mr. Jimmy Blue, Mr. All Access Elite. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Tommy Rush Jr. Be sure if you want some badass barbecue delivered to your door, at least in the Texas area, hit him up at BSHQ BBQ. That's his Instagram handle. Also, as y'all saw, Courtney Tanner was live with us. Shout out to Mr. Courtney Tanner, the Brown Bird Sugar. Shout out to Michael Gomes, who'll be on with us very, very soon in the near future. He's doing big things with Signature Realty out of New Jersey. Again, shout out to everyone who is live with us. Sean Fitzgerald from Just Boxing Foundation. Also a preview. We plan to have Mr. Sean Fitzgerald on with us to interview him about his Just Boxing Foundation. So very excited about that. In the next month of March. Shout out to Mr. Stephen Ruiz from Ringside Global. Gary Kittleson, who is on with us on the YouTube side of things. He watched us on the YouTube side. Big shout out. Jose Rendon, thank you, sir, for supporting us. Who else did I? Manny Marrero Jr. from En Vivo Podcast. Long live boxing. Shout out to you, sir, and everyone else on that squad. Yeah, that's it, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode.
We spent some jams today, man.
Yeah, yes, sir. Couldn't agree more. This is episode 79. The Standing 8 podcast. Have a safe evening, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm Aaron Sorial from Los Angeles, signing off here with Jimmy Blue from All Access Elite. Follow him at his IG, FB, Twitter. Information on the bottom right of the screen. Also in the description of this video. His information is all out there. Again, Tommy Rush also with us. Again, we're all signing out. Have a good night, guys. Peace.